Listen to the world for just a moment. It is a symphony of noise, a relentless chorus of voices rising above the hum of modern life. Everywhere we look, from the fluorescent-lit corridors of office buildings to the digital arenas of our screens, people are complaining. They speak of the exhausting nature of small talk, the suffocating atmosphere of crowded rooms, the hollow echo of superficial friendships, and the heavy, invisible chains of societal expectations. For many, this constant vocalization of frustration is the only release valve they have. It is how they survive the friction of the everyday. But hidden within this loud, restless crowd is a rare kind of observer, a quiet mind that moves through the exact same chaotic world, yet processes the friction in a completely different way. This is the story of the INFJ personality, the rare architects of the soul, who look at a wall not as an obstacle to curse, but as a surface upon which a door might be built. Do not mistake their silence for immunity. The INFJ feels the abrasive nature of the world just as deeply, if not more intensely, than anyone else. They are acutely aware of the shallow behaviors, the unfairness, and the overwhelming sensory overload of modern society. The profound difference lies entirely in their response. Where the instinct of the masses is to react loudly, to let irritation take the wheel, the INFJ chooses the profound power of the pause. They step back. They look beneath the turbulent surface of the water to understand the currents below. They ask themselves a fundamental question. What does this moment actually mean? And how can it be transformed into something of value? This deliberate, quiet way of moving through life often baffles onlookers. Some misinterpret this silence as a fear of conflict, while others assume it is a cold detachment. But the reality is far more beautiful. The INFJ cares so deeply that they refuse to squander their limited emotional currency on the endless loop of complaining. Instead of complaining, they study the architecture of the problem. If a space is too loud, they do not shout over the noise. They carefully construct a boundary or plot a quiet exit to protect their inner sanctuary. If a societal rule feels rigid and devoid of humanity, they do not simply complain about the chains. They find a respectful, creative way to slip through them and forge a better path. There is a deeply philosophical layer to their existence. They are constant seekers of meaning. In the grand tapestry of human history, the greatest minds survived turmoil by finding purpose in the mundane, and the INFJ practices this ancient wisdom daily. They view a difficult task as a quiet masterclass in patience. They see solitude not as a failure of social life, but as a vital instrument of self-preservation. By assigning a purpose to the uncomfortable moments, the urge to complain naturally dissolves. Let us deeply explore 6 universal frustrations that break the spirit of the modern world, and discover how this rare personality type masterfully transforms them into stepping stones of peace. The first universal grievance is the inescapable realm of small talk. Across cultures, trivial conversation is often viewed as a tedious chore. People groan about the agonizing loops of discussing the weather, weekend plans, or mundane routines. They view it as a fake, plastic mask they must wear before reaching the genuine human beneath. The INFJ, however, looks at small talk through an entirely different lens. They do not worship it, nor do they wage war against it. Instead, they view small talk as the front porch of a grand house. You do not sleep or live your life on the porch, but you absolutely must step onto it to be welcomed inside. When they engage in these surface-level exchanges, they are not merely registering the spoken words. They are engaging in a profound human scan. They are listening to the subtle shifts in tone, the hesitation in a breath, and observing the flickering light behind the eyes. In the hands of an INFJ, small talk transforms from a chore into an instrument of empathy. They listen fiercely for the unsaid. They understand that a quick, dismissive laugh might be a shield for deep anxiety. A monotone reply about the weather might be the heavy echo of sheer exhaustion. Recognizing these hidden truths, they do not judge the person for being superficial. They gently pivot the interaction. They might offer a soft, open-ended question, or simply provide a warm, non-judgmental space. They guide the conversation with the lightest of touches, knowing that forced vulnerability is just as toxic as forced enthusiasm. They make it profoundly safe for the other person to slowly lower their armor. And if the other person is simply too tired or too shy to open up, the INFJ respects that boundary with absolute grace. They leave the interaction not with frustration, but with valuable data about a fellow human being's state of soul. The porch has done its job. The door will open only when the time is right. The second great complaint of our age revolves around solitude. We live in a paradoxical society that constantly complains about being exhausted by people, yet is utterly terrified of being alone. For the masses, isolation is synonymous with loneliness. It is a void that must be frantically filled with digital noise, background television, or endless scrolling. For the INFJ, solitude is the exact opposite. It is not a problem to be cured. It is the most vital resource they possess. Much like the Stoic philosophers or the wise monks of centuries past, they understand that withdrawing from the world is the only way to survive it. Their alone time is not an escape from reality. It is a deeply intentional preparation for it. They use these quiet hours to sweep the floors of their mind, to process the heavy emotional residue left by the week, and to repair the microscopic fractures in their spirit before they break completely. Because they revere solitude as a form of sacred maintenance, you will rarely hear an INFJ complain about needing space. They schedule it with the same non-negotiable respect that others reserve for their physical meals. In the quiet, their creativity takes root. Ideas for art, writing, healing, and innovation begin to blossom precisely because the soil of their mind has been left undisturbed by the chaotic trampling of the outside world. Furthermore, they do not apologize for setting these boundaries. Their limits are communicated with warmth, yet unyielding firmness. When they do experience the sting of true loneliness, they do not numb it with meaningless crowds. They recognize it as a signal asking for genuine, high-quality connection. They will choose a quiet cup of coffee with one trusted friend over a loud, chaotic party every single time. By honoring their need for space, they return to the world with a well of patience, ready to offer their absolute best selves to the people they love. The third widespread grievance is the sensory chaos of modern environments. Walk into any crowded room, busy restaurant, or bustling office, and you will immediately hear complaints about the noise, the flashing lights, and the erratic, unpredictable energy of the crowd. The modern world is undeniably loud. For the deeply sensitive nervous system of the INFJ, these environments are incredibly taxing. Yet they almost never waste their breath complaining about the volume. Instead, they become master adapters. They do not fight the noise, they analyze it. Where others simply feel a wall of irritating sound, the INFJ perceives a complex web of social dynamics. They read the room like a grand, chaotic novel. They sense who is genuinely joyful, who is secretly anxious, and where the energy is flowing. This hyper-awareness turns sensory chaos into structured information, granting them an internal sense of control. When the sheer weight of the environment threatens to crush them, the INFJ employs a quiet, almost invisible survival mechanism. They retreat to the fortress of their inner mind. They might anchor their focus onto a single, constant sound, a beautiful architectural detail in the room, or the steady rhythm of their own breathing. They understand a profound truth about life. Peace is not the absence of external noise. Peace is the ability to maintain absolute stillness within the storm. They know that voicing complaints about a crowded room only adds more negative frequency to an already overwhelming space. So, they observe without absorbing. They walk through the chaotic marketplace of human energy completely wrapped in an invisible cloak of calm. And once the ordeal is over, they silently enact their recovery rituals, returning to their quiet sanctuaries to let their overstimulated nerves finally settle into velvet silence. The fourth element that triggers endless societal complaining is the agony of superficial relationships. Everywhere we turn, people express profound disappointment in the lack of loyalty, the transactional nature of modern friendships, and the painful sting of fair-weather companions. The INFJ sees this tragic reality faster and more clearly than anyone. They crave deep, authentic, soul-bearing connections. They require emotional safety and unwavering honesty. So, when they find themselves entangled with someone who is chronically superficial or emotionally unavailable, how do they react? They do not start a dramatic argument. They do not gossip or post vague grievances for the world to see. Instead, they execute the most quiet and graceful of departures. They simply step back. They slowly withdraw their energy, their investment, and their presence. This silent withdrawal is often mistaken for coldness, but it is actually the highest form of self-respect. The INFJ deeply understands that not every human being is capable of diving into the deep waters of the soul. They do not hold resentment toward those who can only swim in the shallows. They simply choose not to drown, trying to force depth where none exists. Before the final retreat, the INFJ has likely given the person multiple unspoken chances to show their true colors. They have quietly observed the inconsistencies and the lack of reciprocity. Once the verdict is clear, they release the connection without a shred of malice. This preserves their profound internal peace. They refuse to complain about fake people because they do not allow fake people to occupy prime real estate in their minds. They live by a quiet, unbreakable code. If the connection is not real, it is not required, and by clearing out the superficial, they leave immense, beautiful space for the rare, genuine souls who are truly worthy of their loyalty. The fifth massive source of human suffering is the crushing pressure to conform. From childhood into the corporate world, society demands uniformity. People spend their entire lives complaining about the exhaustion of wearing masks, of bending their morals, and crushing their own spirits just to fit into the neatly drawn boxes of societal expectation. The INFJ feels this immense pressure constantly, but you will rarely hear them cry out against it, because they categorically refuse to let it govern their identity. From a very young age, the INFJ recognizes that they are cut from a different cloth. They perceive the invisible threads of emotion, history, and consequence that others blissfully ignore. Instead of fighting an exhausting war to blend in with the flock, they make a radical, quiet decision to fully accept their own distinct nature. Their defiance is not loud, aggressive, or rebellious. It is composed of quiet, unshakable authenticity. They are unfailingly polite, respectful, and kind to the society around them, but they possess an inner compass made of solid iron. If a trend, a workplace culture, or a social demand violates their core values, they simply will not participate. They do not need the applause of the crowd to validate their worth. They know that altering their soul to please the masses is the ultimate tragedy. Thus, the social pressure that crushes so many simply flows around the INFJ like water around a deeply rooted stone. They lead by the quiet power of example. By remaining so incredibly grounded in their own truth, they become a silent beacon of permission for others. They show the world that you do not need to complain about the mold. You only need the quiet courage to step completely outside of it. The sixth and perhaps most profound complaint of the modern era is the agonizing lack of meaning. Millions wake up every day, go through the mechanical motions of survival, and stare at the ceiling at night wondering, what is the point of all this? The existential dread of an empty, repetitive life is a heavy burden on the collective human heart. But the INFJ does not complain about the void, because they are master alchemists of purpose. They do not wait for destiny to hand them a grand cinematic mission. They forge meaning in the microscopic details of the present moment. A seemingly meaningless task like washing the dishes becomes a meditative practice in mindfulness. A brief commute is transformed into an opportunity for deep philosophical reflection. A mundane interaction with a stranger is a chance to quietly inject a drop of kindness into a harsh world. They understand that a life does not need to echo through the halls of history to be profoundly meaningful. Purpose is not something you find hidden under a rock. It is something you actively bring to the table of life. When they face pain, failure, or agonizing boredom, they do not see a cruel joke of the universe. They see a strict, quiet teacher. They ask, what is this darkness trying to show me? By living from the inside out, they ensure that their internal light never depends on the unpredictable weather of the outside world. The INFJ moves through our loud, reactive society as a quiet testament to the power of observation over reaction. They show us that while complaining might offer the illusion of temporary relief, true, unshakable peace is only found in deep understanding. Their quiet resilience is not just a personality trait. It is a brilliant, silent rebellion against the chaos of the world. And it is a reminder to us all that the most powerful changes begin exactly where the noise ends.